$2 million. Let that number sit in your chest for a second. Not as an abstraction, not as the title of a financial article, but as something real. The kind of thing you picture when you close your eyes and think about genuine freedom. Most people hear that figure and immediately picture the same thing. Luxury, a yacht, a beach house, a perfect retirement without alarms, without commutes, without the Monday morning meeting nobody asked for. But today, I'm going to show you something that might be uncomfortable. And precisely because of that, almost nobody talks about it openly. $2 million. Here in Canada, the way the economy actually works right now is not a lifestyle. It's a spreadsheet number. And what that money actually buys on a Tuesday morning with no boss, no commute, no paycheck at the end of the month. That's what nobody tells you. Before we get to the big number, we need to talk about where most Canadians actually stand. Because when you understand the context, what seemed obvious stops being so. At age 65, the average Canadian retirement savings sits at around $272,000. $272,000. Not $2 million. Not $1 million. $272,000. If you've arrived here with $2 million in your portfolio, you're already among the top 5% of Canadians in that age group. That's not an opinion. It's a statistic. But here's the problem that figure conceals. Having money and knowing how to use money efficiently are two entirely different skills. The mistakes I see repeatedly, even among financially sophisticated people who spent decades accumulating wealth with real discipline, cost tens of thousands of dollars over the course of retirement. Money that leaves quietly, without drama, without warning, without you noticing, until it's too late. Let's start with the math, because everything begins here. Every serious retirement planner needs to know the 4% rule, developed from the Trinity study, a long-running body of research on portfolio longevity across different historical market scenarios. The logic is this: if you withdraw 4% of your total portfolio value per year and adjust that amount annually for inflation, historically, that money lasts 30 years or more, with a very high probability of success. On $2 million, that means $80,000 per year. $80,000. Sounds generous? Wait, because here's where the real game begins, and it's exactly where most people make a silent, expensive mistake. Taxes. Where that money is held changes absolutely everything. If you have your $2 million inside an RRSP, and many Canadians hold most of their wealth there because they spent decades contributing and taking advantage of the tax deductions, every dollar you withdraw is taxed as regular income, just like any salary. Depending on your province and the volume you draw each year, you could be looking at a marginal tax rate of 40%, 43%, 45%. Those $80,000 gross dollars become $45,000 to $48,000 take-home. The $80,000 lifestyle evaporated before you had a chance to enjoy it. The TFSA, the tax-free savings account, is the exact opposite. Every dollar that comes out of it doesn't count as income for any federal or provincial tax purpose whatsoever. You can withdraw $50,000 from a TFSA, and your income tax return doesn't move a single dollar. That's why the smart strategy isn't just how much you withdraw, but which account you withdraw from, in which year, and in what sequence. This is called tax bracket management, and it can represent a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars over 25 or 30 years of retirement. The withdrawal order matters as much as the size of the portfolio. Now add to the equation what the government will actually pay you, because you contributed your entire working life, and that money is genuinely yours. The CPP, Canada Pension Plan, pays an average of around $950 per month For someone retiring at 65, if you worked and contributed for decades with consistent earnings, you might approach the current maximum of $1,300 per month. The OAS, Old Age Security, adds another $728 per month, starting at age 65, practically automatically for anyone who has lived in Canada long enough. Combined, we're talking about somewhere between $1,600 and $2,000 per month from the government, roughly $20,000 to $24,000 per year, before you touch a single dollar of your private portfolio. But there's a hidden trap here that quietly destroys carefully built plans. If your annual income exceeds $90,997 at the 2024 threshold, the government starts clawing back your OAS. For every dollar above that ceiling, you lose 15 cents of the benefit. Poorly planned RRSP withdrawals in specific years can trigger this mechanism and completely eliminate the nearly $9,000 per year of OAS benefits. It's a mistake that happens constantly. It's perfectly avoidable with advanced planning, and almost nobody explains it clearly. Now let's build the real budget, because this is where theory meets actual life. The critical premise that changes everything. You no longer have a mortgage. With the house paid off, your fixed costs drop dramatically. But they don't disappear. Property taxes vary significantly depending on the city, from $4,000 in smaller municipalities to $9,000 in major centers like Toronto or Vancouver. Groceries for a couple land between $10,000 and $12,000 per year. Transportation with no car payment between $5,000 and $8,000. Healthcare and medications between $3,000 and $6,000, a number that grows progressively with age and that many people seriously underestimate. Utilities like hydro, gas, and internet fall between $4,000 and $6,000. Leisure and entertainment, another $4,000 to $6,000. And if you want to keep international travel in the equation, and many people insist on it, especially in the early years of retirement, while health permits, budget $15,000. That puts you at a total annual budget of $45,000 to $62,000, assuming a comfortable and conscious life without extravagance but without deprivation. If you can get $50,000 to $60,000 net from your private portfolio and receive $20,000 to $24,000 from the government, you have between $70,000 and $84,000 per year. That budget works, but the balance is more delicate than it appears. There are three silent enemies that no retirement plan can afford to ignore. The first is sequence of returns risk. Imagine you retire today, begin withdrawing $80,000 per year, and in the first or second year, the market drops 30%. You're forced to sell assets cheaply to cover your monthly expenses. When the market recovers, and historically it always does, you'll have far fewer units to benefit from the upswing. This phenomenon can shorten a portfolio's lifespan by years, regardless of what the historical average return looks like. The solution is to keep 1 to 2 years of expenses in cash or short-term fixed income, so that in a downturn, you never need to sell equities at the worst possible moment. The second enemy is inflation. An average rate of 3% per year sounds trivial, but over 25 years, it reduces purchasing power roughly in half. The $80,000 of today will carry the equivalent purchasing power of approximately $40,000 a quarter century from now, if inflation holds at that level. That's why the 4% rule must be applied with an annual inflation adjustment. It's not optional, it's structural and non-negotiable. The third enemy is the one people least like to include in any spreadsheet: long-term care costs. Private home care at 4 hours per day can run $50,000 per year. Specialized care facilities in Ontario or BC can easily reach $80,000 to $120,000 annually. 2 or 3 years of those expenses and a $2 million portfolio starts to look far more fragile than it did in theory. The most effective strategy is to consider long-term care insurance before age 60, when premiums are still financially accessible. But now I want to step completely away from the math, because the greatest risk I see in financially well-planned retirements isn't in the spreadsheet, it's in the mirror. After decades building a professional identity, building purpose from meetings, targets, deliverables, team dynamics, responsibility, you wake up on a Monday with none of that. No structured schedule, no problem to solve, no success metric at the end of the day. And many people, especially high performers who are deeply achievement-oriented, discover that freedom without structure isn't freedom. It's a void with a nice view. The research on retirement satisfaction is remarkably consistent. Those who find structural purpose, not necessarily paid work, but genuine commitment to something larger than themselves, report significantly better physical health and subjective well-being than those who simply stop. A woodworking shop, volunteer work 2 mornings a week, a pickleball league on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a reading group, a mentorship project, a garden that demands attention and planning. This isn't trivial, it's emotional architecture. And planning this dimension of retirement is just as important as planning your withdrawal rate. Finally, there's one concept that can completely transform the financial equation we've discussed throughout this video. Geographic arbitrage. $2 million in Vancouver or Toronto, cities where the cost of living ranks among the highest on the continent, will sustain a solid retirement. But it will demand constant discipline and leave virtually no margin for the unexpected. The same $2 million in rural British Columbia, New Brunswick, interior Quebec, or Manitoba sustains a significantly more generous lifestyle, with more room for life's surprises, more genuine financial freedom, and less monthly pressure on the portfolio. I'm not talking about giving up quality of life. I'm talking about conscious decisions that multiply the purchasing power of everything you built across decades of work. $2 million is a lot of money, and it is not infinite money. The difference between a retirement that merely sustains you and a retirement that gives you real freedom isn't the number, it's the strategy. If this content shifted something in the way you think about retirement, about what money actually buys, and how to protect what you've built, hit the subscribe button. Because every week I bring this kind of analysis. No unnecessary jargon, no miracle promises, no shortcuts that don't actually exist. Just the numbers that matter, and what you do with them.